the morning. They're like, brother, we appreciate your love and faith, but don't come because there's no school. And we went round and round a little. And then I said, well, I know God said why. It was too miraculous of how it happened. So he said, well, let me call somebody. And 5 minutes later, Nick Savoca from the base in Concord called and said, we'd love to have you here. So instead of heading south to Jersey, we headed north New England, and everything has taken place from that point, how God orchestrated. Just amazing. So to go there the other day, because right now, this particular weekend, I think it's either the weekend or the next weekend that we went to Jersey for her sister's wedding and then came back up. And then we started our outreach phase of the summer of 81. And so here we are 40 years later. Just so many things that have happened in that time, our relationships in New England, relationships through New England, from New England that have gone all over. So it's really a joy. And he took a little bit of thunder, that's okay. But just yesterday was so cool because we love being together. And I love history, and I love revival and awakenings. I love church history. And to get out there and to be there, and I've gone through the town a number of times before, but there's just something extra about knowing that how the Lord worked to give him, literally, he cried out for one more day. That's what he was crying out. I want one more day. The only thing I don't know yet, and I'm still trying to research, is where he actually came from, because he was someplace in New Hampshire, and he actually only stopped to take a break in Exeter as he was going home to Newburyport. That's where he was heading. That's where the church was built, and that's where he helped founded it and was the pastor as well as, itinerant evangelist. But he was coming from someplace, and he had to take a break. And that's what took happen. They rested. And all of a sudden, the word went out. And in less than 2 hours, 6,000 people came from the region, left, and they're in the, doing, agriculture work. The smith left his shop. Everybody just showed up. Kids just came out of nowhere. 6,000 people. No internet. Nobody. Somebody.
No. Yeah.
It was like Paul Revere early, letting them know. And there we were. And he preached his last message. And just recently I found out the last message, it was 2 hours in length. Here's a guy who's nearly dead, asking God for one more day. He said, I would rather wear out than rust out. That was one of his great quotes. And here he is. He's only 56. He had a lot of issues. He had a lot of asthma, a lot of traveling. Traveling in those days was really rough. He made 13 trips across the Atlantic, over 2.5 years of his life in the bottom of a boat, getting tossed here and there. But bottom line is, he preached on the passage in Corinthians that I've been teaching lately. And it's an amazing thing, because his whole message was, check yourself to see if you're in the faith. He, like Paul, who wrote Corinthians, was not just assuming because people were in the building or hearing the letter that they were all saved, that they were all convinced that they had the faith of the Son of God. And because of the type of preacher he was the same. He never just took it for granted that there were church people, yes, but then there were unbelievers. And so he kind of looked at them all as, you just need to know the truth. And so here he is, his last official message, 6,000 people coming from the entire region, young and old and kids, and there they are in front of him, and he preaches 2 hours, which was the average back then. An hour and a half to 2 hours was a normal sermon, and all kinds of people got saved, first time. Others got right with God, because he's talking about being reconciled back to God and having the faith. And then he rested a little bit after that. Then they got into the horse and buggy and went home to Newburyport. And he got up at 4 a.m.
I think he gave a little exhortation from.
He did. He got up at 4 a.m., saw the sunlight starting to come across, because it's right on the water, as you know, and had a little exhortation in the afternoon before that. And then at 4 got up, then he barely could move. And at 6 a.m. he was gone. But it's so amazing though. Here's the guy who talk about finishing well.
Yeah.
Talk about God. Just give me one more day. That was his deal. Give me one. He knew he was dying. He knew he was in trouble, consumption and other stuff that was going on physically, but just give me one more day. And to go out like that on one of his favorite messages. And it just goes along with there's such history up here. There's such legacy that is up here. And there's something about us being able to redig those wells of salvation for ourselves, for our families, and for us, because who knows when the Lord comes back. He had a sense, like many do, that it could be at any time. But either way, he knew he would be leaving soon. He knew he'd be going, and his whole heart was, just give me one more time. Give me one more time. So I find that often, and I've been saying it for years, Lord, that's what I want too. Just give me one more time. And sometimes you feel like when you get so filled with God and the passion of God, so whether you're praying or preaching or prophesying or speaking, you feel like this is it. This could be it. And I don't mean in a morbid way, but just like, I just got to get out what's in me from him. And if it is my last, that's how I want to go. Now, I'm not being morbid, and I'm not saying it's done after this, but that's, I think, what these guys of old and of renown had in them. Even Paul had it as he wrote his last letter to Timothy. He had it. He knew it. He goes, man, I fought the fight. I've won my race. I'm being poured out as a drink offering. And sure enough, it was just a little later, he was gone. But he did everything right up to the very end with everything that was inside of him. And that moves me. That encourages me. It exhorts me. And it also challenges me. And it brings the fear of God in me. Because I don't want it to be the opposite. You know? Yeah. I honestly, and I love the beach and I love the water, but don't let me die there.
Yeah.
Unless there's all kinds of people around and I'm ministering to the surfers or something. Then I'll be okay. And I feel like the Lord's like, okay, son, come on home now. But you know what I'm saying? I don't want to just die in a laziness, apathetic, complacent, bring me my Mai Tai, please, as I hang out on the beach, honey. I just, that's not, I want it to be my time is his time and all the rest. So anyhow, that was part of yesterday. That was so cool. And to be there and then getting to some of the stuff that was around there and how that was actually the town square. Until it moved a little further east. And then it was just 11 years later that Exeter Academy was built. And some of these homes that are there, and they're just incredible homes and on the legacy that was there.
And war broke out.
Yeah.
17,
yeah. Lots of stuff going on in it. But anyhow, so thank you for having us. I always want to make sure I say, and I missed last year. We really did. It was one of the first times, I think, in many, many years that we didn't get to New England. And so love being up here, love being with you guys. Grateful that Robin makes the trip and we have an enjoyable time. It's always fun being with Lauren and Steve as well, and others when we've gotten to see him. Saw somebody the other day we haven't seen, it's got to be over 20 years. They were actually our SOE directors, and we got to see her. They live in Concord, and it's been wonderful getting to see Laura out of the blue, just be able to visit a little bit and to be here, and then get to see all of you guys. And then we can have a little luncheon down there. Wonderful. And you by home if you're not here, so sorry. You can still come by. There's probably bagels and whatever's left of the quiche that he don't eat.
What are you talking about? I love quiche.
That's what I just said. That there won't be any left.
That I leave. Okay, I got you. I'm sorry. I love quiche.
And I know you do. And I've even actually learned to like it a little bit because I love eggs, but I've just never been the quiche kind of guy, So appreciate all the love, all the support all these years. This is our 32nd year. Would have never thought that. Never thought God would have ever called us out of New England to put us in what I think is the greatest city, the city of nations, and also pretty wicked. Never thought God would put us back because we were very wicked there. I more than her. But here we are 32 years later and have a lot of heart and vision and passion left for it and desire to see God do what he's done there in the past to do it again, just like he's done it up here in the past and believing for him to do it again. It's too much to go into that, but I really do believe that. And so let me just give you a couple testimonies, or at least one to start. And this has helped me recently because there's sometimes you just feel like all your prayers, all your fastings, all your intercessions, everything, and yet you don't seem to be getting the answers that you desire. Right? Anybody been there? Sure. And I think some of us are there right now. And if we're not there for our nation feeling that, then we better recheck ourselves because I've got great hopes for this nation, but I know we're going to have to battle and contend for a whole lot of stuff right now because it's not looking good. Right. A lot of things are not looking good. But for me, I'm always, and I'm not like the eternal optimist. I don't live in Houston. I don't have 80,000 people in my church. I don't look or sound like him, but I do appreciate his optimism. I really do. I am honestly, I just love that he just, no matter what goes on, he's got his faith and trust in God and his word, and hallelujah for it. Yeah. But at the same time, I know we got to contend that stuff is not just going to happen. Right. And not just going to happen with us. It's not going to happen for the generations to follow us. And so there's a lot of warfare that has to go on. And so very quickly, about 15, I'm guessing it's 15, 16 years ago, things get a little, in my mind, forgetful, but there was a young man at that point. He's 6'6", and he had a lot of mental illness. He was also heavy into drugs and alcohol, and he was really at times rough around the park where we would go, and his obscenities, demons, all that stuff, it just manifested all the time. And yet he would have moments of, he was okay and he was fine. But most of the times he was screaming and he was yelling and he was really messing with a lot of people. I can know a number of times he came out. I can remember one time in the winter, we had just finished setting up. I had already put out the bagels. I got the soup. I got the hot chocolate. And we're just about ready, people are getting in line to come. And he just came up and I'm looking at him. I'm watching him come through the park and he makes a beeline for me. And I'm preparing myself for the obscenities because he just loved to, demons like to swear, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that, but they're the ones who come up with all that language.
So we might want to avoid that.
And they do it. And so he comes up and he looks at me and his eyes are just blazing. And he just takes his entire big long arm and he just swiped the entire counter of everything. And most of it got on me.
Oh.
Hot chocolate and soup. And then he looks at me and he just